Hello and welcome to Little Gems Crochet Co. Today we're going to go over how to make this super adorable tie front top, which will be perfect for this summer. It's relatively easy to make, but if you have problems with any of the stitches, I do have other videos over on my channel which go through the stitches in more detail. Also, throughout the video, I will be telling you how to adjust the size slightly if you need to make it larger or smaller. For reference, I'm a size 8, so let's get going. For this, you'll need a size 4 crochet hook, some scissors, a tapestry needle, and I used about 7 balls of the Drops Paris yarn in the colour light denim. Let's get started with the top part of our top. Start by creating a slip knot on your hook, and then we are going to chain 23. Once you have done your 23 chains, what we're going to do next is half double crochet back down the row in the back loops only. So we're going to start off going into the third chain from the end in the back loop only and do our first half double crochet. And we will continue to half double crochet down the rest of the row, and I will meet you at the end of the row. Once you get to the end of the row, your chain should look like this. Now we're going to chain 2 and then turn our work. And we're going to half double crochet back along the row using the back loops only again. This will give us the slightly ridged effect of the top. Carry on your half double crochets along the row and I will meet you in the second to last stitch on the row. So what we're going to do in the final stitch of this row is we're going to do 3 half double crochets into that final stitch. This will give us the shaping around the cup. So that's the first half double crochet, second half double crochet, and third half double crochet. And now what we're going to do is chain 2 and turn our work. And now before we go down this row, we're going to do 3 half double crochets into that first stitch. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Then once we have done our 3 half double crochets into that first stitch, like so, we're going to half double crochet down the rest of the row into the back loops only. Continue on and I will meet you at the end of the row. We're going to finish our row like we've done previously by chaining 2 and turning our work. Before we continue this row, you can see that we now have 2 sides to this project. One which goes at diagonal and one which goes straight up. Repeat the steps from the previous 2 rows and you will see the diagonal will keep going up at a diagonal and the straight line will continue to be straight. Continue this until you have 15 rows and I will meet you when you have 6 stitches left of the 15th row. Now with our last 6 stitches of the 15th row, we're going to do a decreasing stitch. So we're going to half double crochet 2 stitches together 3 times. So we start as normal by yarning over and inserting our hook into the stitch we want to work on. Yarn over and pull back through. Then we're going to yarn over again and insert our hook into the next stitch along. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook. Repeat these steps twice more until you are at the end of the row, then chain 2, turn your work, and I will meet you back then. For this row, we will still be decreasing the amount of stitches, so we're going to start off by doing half double crochet 2 stitches together 3 times over like we've just done at the end of the previous row. And again, the same as the rest of the project, we are still using the back loops only. Once you have completed your half double crochet 2 stitches together 3 times, we will continue doing our half double crochets in the back loops only down the rest of the row, and I will meet you at the end of the row. At the end of the row, chain 2 and turn your work. Once again, we will be doing half double crochets in the back loop only up the row, and I will meet you when you've got 4 stitches left of this row. In these last 4 stitches, we're going to be doing our half double crocheting 2 stitches together to continue decreasing the edge of the cup section. So that's the first one done. Now on to the second one. And then once you have done both of those, we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And again, we are going to do our half double crochet 2 stitches together twice over before continuing down the row with our normal half double crochet stitch. Continue with your half double crochet stitch and I will meet you at the end of the row. Like previously, at the end of the row, chain 2 and turn your work. Continue with your half double crochet along the row and I will meet you when you have 7 stitches left. Now that you have 7 stitches left, instead of crocheting any stitches together, we are just going to do a slip stitch into the next stitch, going through both loops, not just the back loop only, and then turning your work. And now we will start our next row with a slip stitch into that first chain, like so. And then we're going to go back into our half double crochet in our back loops only, down the chain. Once you have done this, fasten off the end and that is the first cup done. Repeat all the steps for the second cup so you have 2 cups before we continue our next steps. Now you should have 2 cups that look like this. It doesn't matter if the edges look a little bit messy right now, we're going to be sorting that out in a second. We're also going to be doing the strap that goes across the top and connects the 2 cups together. To make the strap that goes around the neck, we're actually going to start by inserting our hook here and doing a single crochet along that edge to the peak of the cup where we will start making the strap. This will help with the edging that we will do later on and keep the strap nice and firmly attached to the cups. Continue your single crochets up this edge and I will meet you at the peak of the cup. Once you have done your single crochets along that entire side and reached the top, we're going to stop doing our single crochets and now we're going to chain. This will be the part that goes up and around the back of your neck. For me, I chained 55, however you might need it slightly longer or shorter depending on your size. The way to check this is once you've done a rough amount of chains around the 50 to 60 mark, hold up the cup on one side, put the chains around the back of your neck and see if it hits the top of the second cup when being held into place. Once you have got your chain, we now need to attach it to the second cup. We're going to do this by inserting our hook to the peak of the second cup, making sure your chain isn't twisted, and we're going to do a slip stitch to hold it in place, and then we're going to continue our single crochet down that edge of the second cup. Try and ensure that the total amount of stitches around this section is a multiple of 6. This will help your scalloped edge later on. Continue with your single crochet and I will meet you at the end of the row. Now you've reached the end of the row, what we're going to do is go back around that same row to really reinforce the strap. So we're going to start this next row by chaining 1 and then turning our work. Now we're just going to do a single crochet around that entire row that we've just done. So along the cup, round the strap and down the side of the other cup. Continue this and I will meet you at the end of the row. Now that we have this reinforced strap, what we're going to do is do some nice scalloped edges. To start this, we're going to do a slip stitch, chain 1, and then we're going to turn our work. Now we're going to skip 2 stitches and work into the 3rd stitch from the hook with a half double crochet. Then we're going to do 4 more half double crochets into that same stitch. This is what will start to give us that scalloped shape. So that's the third half double crochet, fourth half double crochet, and finally the fifth half double crochet. Now again, we're going to skip 2 stitches and work into the third stitch from where we are, and this time we're just going to do a slip stitch. This will anchor that half circle down. Now we're going to repeat those steps again, so we're going to skip 2 stitches, working into the third stitch, and do our 5 half double crochets. Then once we have done our 5 half double crochets, we're going to skip 2 more stitches and do a slip stitch into the next stitch, and we are going to continue this all throughout this row. So continue this and I will meet you at the end of the row. To finish off this row, we're just going to do a slip stitch at the end, cut our yarn and then weave in the end. This is now the top section of the top completed. This can now be put to one side as we will now be working on the bottom section of the top. To start off the bottom section, we are going to do a slip knot and then we are going to chain 130, or whatever the circumference of your underbust area is, plus about 2 inches. Continue making your chain and I will meet you at the end of the chain where we will start row 1. Now we are going to work our way back down this chain doing double crochets. So we want to yarn over and we're going to work into the third chain from the hook. So that's this one. Insert and do your double crochet. And now we want to continue doing a double crochet into every chain along the row. So continue this and I will meet you at the end of the row. Once you reach the end of this row, we are now going to chain 4 and then turn our work. Then we will start row 2. Now we're going to go back along this row doing a mesh stitch. So what we need to do first is a double crochet into the second stitch from the hook. So we're missing 1 stitch, going into the next one and doing our double crochet. Then we are going to chain 1. And again, we're going to miss the next stitch and going to the second one along and do a double crochet. And then we're going to repeat this along the row. So 1 double crochet, 1 chain, and then next double crochet after skipping one of the stitches in the row below. Continue this along and I will meet you at the end of the row. At the end of the row, we are going to chain 3 and then turn our work. And then for row 3, we are going to repeat what we did for row 1 and do a double crochet into every stitch along the row. So continue with your double crochet and I will meet you at the end of the row. To end row 3, we are going to chain 1 and then turn our work. For row 4, all we're going to do is do a single crochet into every stitch along the row. So continue this and I will meet you at the end of row 4. To end row 4, we're going to chain 3 and then turn our work. We're going to start off row 5 with a double crochet into that first stitch. After our double crochet, we are then going to chain 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we are going to skip 1 stitch and we are going to double crochet 3 stitches together. If you're unsure on exactly how to do this and you need more detail, there is another video over on my channel which goes into this in more detail. Then once you have done your double crocheting 3 stitches together, we are going to chain 5 again and repeat these steps across the row. So we will chain 5, miss 1 stitch, double crochet 3 stitches together and then chain 5 again. Continue this and I will meet you at the end of the row. In the last 2 stitches of row 5, we're just going to double crochet 2 stitches together rather than 3. as this will give us a straighter edge to our top. Now we needed to chain 5 and then turn our work. Now onto row 6. This row can get a little bit fiddly. So what we need to do is single crochet into the middle stitch from the chain of the previous row. So that would be the 3rd chain. Then once you have done that single crochet in the middle chain, we are going to chain 5 again. 2, 3, 4, 5. And then again, we're going into the middle stitch from the next chain along on the previous row. And we will continue this pattern along the row. So I will meet you at the end of the row. To end row 6, what we're going to do is do a double crochet into the very last stitch of the row. Then we are going to chain 3 and turn our work, ready to start row 7. We're going to start by doing a double crochet into the base of the chain we've just created. And then we are going to chain 1. Then what we are going to do is do 3 double crochets into the middle stitch of the chain below. So it will be the 3rd chain from the section of the row underneath. Again, this can be a little bit fiddly. So that's your first double crochet. And your second double crochet. And finally your 3rd double crochet into that same middle stitch. Then we're going to repeat the previous steps again. So we're going to chain 1 and then do 3 double crochets in the next 3rd chain along from the row below in the middle chain section. Continue doing this along the row and I will meet you at the end of the row. To finish row 7, what we're going to do in the last stitch is do 2 double crochets in the same stitch. Then we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Row 8 is very simple. All we are going to do is single crochet into every stitch along the row. So continue this and I will meet you at the end of the row. To finish row 8, all we're going to do is chain 2 and turn our work. Then for row 9, we're going to start exactly the same as we did on row 1 and do a double crochet along the entire row. From this point on, you can repeat all the steps from row 1 to row 8 over again until the bottom section is as long as you would like it. Mine ended up being 10 inches long. Once you have completed row 9, this is what your project should look like, and here it's easier to see what rows you will be repeating and what the pattern will now look like. I carried on my project until I had 28 rows, or as you can see here, it's 10 inches long. You can stop repeating the pattern at any point in time once you reach your desired length, so don't let the number of rows impact how long you want the top. But now this bottom section is complete, we will now go to attach these to the cups. Start by taking the first cup and making sure the scalloped edge is facing outwards. Line up the corner of the cup with the top corner of the bottom section of your project and insert your hook, connecting both pieces together. Then what we're going to do is slip stitch these 2 sections together. For the bottom section, it's very easy to make sure you slip stitch into every single stitch, but because the top section we don't have a clear stitch pattern at the bottom, just try and make sure you insert your hook about the same distance as you are your stitches on the bottom section of the top. Continue this all the way along and then do the same with the other cup on the other side of the top, but make sure your strap is not twisted when you attach it on, otherwise you're going to have to undo it, untwist the strap, and then reattach it again. Once both cups are attached, now what we need to do is create a cord and wrap it through the bottom section here so we can cinch in the top when we put it on. You can use the yarn as it is, however I decided to make a little braid with the yarn as I thought that would look nicer when it's being tied at the front. Then in the row which is the double crochets, what you need to do is weave in and out your cord into every single double crochet. It is a bit of a long process, but you'll be grateful for it in the end. Now that we've got our yarn wrapped around the center of our project, what we're going to do is we're going to add another piece of yarn to really cinch in the cups at the front to hold them in place. I'm going to tie them as you would a corset. However, again, this is completely up to you if you want to go for a different look or would like it more or less secure. To do this, what I'm going to do is fold my yarn in half, and the center of the yarn I'm going to put at the top of the cups. Now, as I'm weaving in the yarn, I'm going to keep the center of that piece of yarn at the top of the cups, so when you're tying it at the bottom, the yarn is an equal length on both sides. Also, it's helpful to know that if you weave in both sides at the same time, it helps keep the center of your yarn centered rather than pulling it all towards one side if you're just weaving in one side of the yarn at the time. Continue this down the cups until you have a zigzag pattern. Now that you've completed zigzagging your yarn in between the cups, your top is now ready to wear. Remember, you can pull this as tight or not as tight as you like, so this is completely adjustable size-wise, which is one of the reasons I love this top. And there you have it, your completed tie front top. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go onto my page and check out my other tutorials. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out my other social channels.